On how to prepare kale, where I'm just actually going to raise up the kale with just a bit of garlic and salt. It's one of my favorites. So here we have piles of kale. That's kale. It's actually time-consuming to clean up. This is fairly nice kale, but because it's so curly, it's a little bit tricky to get at. Let's just see the angle. In the background, I've got my aloo gobi going for another dish. I like to do something green, whether it be spinach or kale. So sometimes what you can do is actually just fold the kale around and then bone it. So basically, and then throw the leaf in there because I want to rinse that, and then this I basically discard into the compost bucket. So it depends on the kale, but you can basically get through this fairly fast. So this is two fairly big bunches of kale. And then I'm basically just going to rinse it all out in a lettuce spinner. So I'll do one more, and then I'll put you on pause, and we'll move to the next step. Okay, so basically I'm just pouring the kale, into the lettuce spinner, and then I'll eventually spin it, but I won't make you watch me prepare all of it. All right, so just the last sprig of kale. So again, fold it over, run around the bone. Make sure that before you put your knife down, your fingers are clear. So again, there's a few actions. The knife doesn't just cut you. You do things to cut yourself. So now I have a nice big bowl full of kale. So in my favorite item in the kitchen, my lettuce spinner, I'll completely fill that with water. I won't make you watch that. Now while the kale is spinning, I'm just going to clean off my cutting board. Now because I cut that kale up before it had been washed, I'm going to make sure that I wash my cutting board pretty well. You don't know what's on it, whether it be pesticides or something like that. But make sure that's clean. And then I'm also just going to give the whole area a nice little scrub down to make sure that anything, again, like pesticides, or if it was dropped on the floor or something like that, aren't going to get onto my food. I want my knife clean. I constantly clean my knife and never put it in the dishwasher. I think a lot of people are like that. So make sure that everything's nice and clean. Give this a good rinse after the soapy water. And in some cases, you might even dry it off. Not really a big issue on this one. So there, that's good. So now my kale is now sitting in the lettuce spinner. Stick that out. So just kind of lift that up. And I'll put this over here, even though it's going to leave a puddle of water, and then just dump that out. So the water's pretty clean. Like, I'm not seeing a lot of dirt or grit. If you are getting a lot of grit, you just keep cleaning it. Sorry, that was the dishwater in the other sink. If you are getting a lot of grit, you want to basically do it a few more times. Now, hopefully I haven't put that too close to the stove. Just let me get the lid to the trusty lettuce spinner. So this doesn't have to be particular. Oops, I left that on, so it could be burning. Actually, no, it hasn't melted through. Organization is a bit tricky because I don't really do this a lot. Well, this is my first day, actually. So I give that a quick spin. Pull that out. There's half a cup of water or something in there. I'll probably spin it one more time just because. But this won't give me a lot more. Lettuce seems to give a lot, the second and third time you sew with it. So as much as I love this lettuce spinner, it does jam a little bit if you load it up wrong. The reason I love it, I think I mentioned before, is because it doesn't have a rope or anything that gets dirty. It's just plastic. It's very easy to kind of keep clean. There isn't much to it. Okay, so let's take a look. So, that spin there, I got, 3 or 4 tablespoons of water. Not a big deal. All right, so now that that's done, let's just take a look, make sure the camera's at a reasonable angle. I think you can kind of see. So what you do with the kale is you'll take it and then try and find a bigger leaf. So like whatever your biggest leaf is, and then just try and wrap it. So at some point, now this can actually be a little bit dangerous in terms of cutting because you're going to raise your knife up a long way to get around this, and it's also kind of scrambly, so your fingers are out a bit like a spider. So you want to be a little careful with that. and just rub it up. Because it's fairly tough, you want to go against the grain and get it fairly thin. It will break up a little bit, but not as much as some other foods when you when you chop them. So a lot of the times when I do this straight into the pan, but I've got something else going on right now, so I'm going to just put them in a cast iron pan for now. And I'll say goodbye.